drive's been a long one. I got up early, I'm fueled by coffee, but now I'm standing on the banks of a river. I've missed fishing a lot. The weather, as for many people listening, it's been a problem for them, and being able to flex some graphite, cast some bamboo, tie on a fly has been a long time coming. I'm old enough to know better, and I'm still shake with excitement. And I'm standing next to somebody that we've just suddenly discovered that our lives have crisscrossed each other for a number of reasons. And we've been spending a long time talking about growing up, our families, and coming from the same part of the world. But I'm very, very pleased to have Jan Hobot on the podcast today. Jan, it's great to have you along. Where are we right now?
So we are just outside Bakewell, downstream. We are on the banks of the Derbyshire Wye, right by Haddon Hall. The river here flows through the grounds of the medieval park, and we just had the osprey flying over us, and it's just looking lovely.
And there's a few granum around as well, aren't there?
Yes. So early April. We tend to have the granum hatch. Seems earlier this year, usually around mid-April, but I think yesterday and today's sunshine has brought them on.
And the wonderful thing about this, I'm sure listeners will know, that the Wye has the only indigenous. Is indigenous the right phrase?
Yeah, I'd say so. I get the question is, how long should something be here before it's native, indigenous? The rainbow's hell of a story. Came over from California, Victorians, moving them around 1890. Up to the lake north of Bakewell, Ashford in the water, Ashford Lake there, on the estate there, and they hatched out the eggs. They grew on the fish, and the river flows in and out of that lake. It's an online lake, and they escaped into the river when the dam burst, and the trout have been here ever since, reproducing, self-supporting species, wild. Different strain to the farmed fish in this country. They're spring spawning, so when those trout spawn amongst the grayling, late March into early May, the water's clear. They group up in numbers, and when those eggs, when they hatch and the fry hatch out, they're coming into a river full of life in midsummer. Not like our brown trout when the eggs hatch into kind of this time of year where it's colder, higher river flows. So those rainbows really grow quick and big. Shorter lifespan than the brown trout, but they're that's what everyone comes here for, I think, to try and catch these wild rainbows. But I still don't think everyone knows about them. I'm try and market them, not market them, but just promote them, just tell their story, show pictures of them on social media, and people say, are they wild? I'm like, yeah, they've been born in this river.
They're extraordinary, and that's not the only thing about this. And first, I guess we should say that I met Jan at the Peacock Hotel, and the fishing that you have the variety. And I remember when I was up last year, you very kindly arranged some fishing with Andy, and we fished the Lathkill, and I've talked about it on the podcast. I think that's probably one of the spookiest rivers that I've ever fished for fish. It was an extraordinary day. We had a wonderful time, but it's also the mixture of fishing that you have here and that anglers are able to experience. We've got the rainbows, which surely is a big enough pool, but there's a wonderful mixture of fishing too, isn't there?
There is. So we've got 4 rivers on the estate. We've got the River Derwent, River Wye, River Lathkill, and River Bradford. The Derwent has that freestone appeal. It's fed by Lady Bower at the top of the catchment, peat stained, so it's got that, always got that tinge of tea colour, and phenomenal brown trout fishing in there. Good grayling stocks, and we're finding some of the rainbows from the Wye do drop down into the Derwent now. They won't spawn in there. We're not quite sure, but they prefer the Wye. Derwent's a bit different in makeup, as say the water quality, the gravel beds, the boulders, and then we've got the River Wye, about 7 miles of that, gritstone and limestone, so it's not your true chalk stream, limestone stream. So it's still got that. It's not crystal clear, but it's still got that tinge of colour at times. In the summer, it's pretty clear, and then our 2 spring-fed rivers, groundwater, River Lathkill and Bradford, really clear. When you've got wild fish only system as well, so we don't do any stocking. Those fish are being born in the river. They're looking for that angler. They're trying to avoid the herons, anything that's going to try and eat them or catch them. And they're pretty spooky.
I'm looking forward to the challenge that is about to come. The other fascinating thing as well, we're in very early April. It's only the 2nd and the season has just started here. But I love the dry fly rule that you have here as well. Can you explain a little bit about how that came about and how people work with that as well as anglers?
Okay, so as from keepers to keepers, handing it down to myself, that knowledge is that the dry fly rule came in 1865, June the 5th, 1865. We used to have a rich history of stocking on these rivers, and we'd have anglers wet fly fishing and catching their bag, killing fish and taking a lot home. The estate keepers then had to rear those fish, so it's a lot of hard work to get fish into these rivers, which were then again sold day tickets and people took them. There was a chap called James Ogden, who a local angler, rich in history, making rods, tying wet flies, and he played around with the thought process of having a fly that floated on the surface to imitate the mayfly. So during that peak season of mayfly, we used to have local boys catching mayfly and then standing outside the hotel, passing and trying to sell them onto the anglers that came out the hotel. They'd whip them onto the hooks and effectively doing dapping all day, catching the trout. So James Ogden, who we see as the pioneer of dry fly fishing, certainly in this area, he basically created a mayfly with natural materials that floated on the surface. And the estate steward then, Robert Nesfield, asked for him to show everyone how these dry flies, floating flies worked. And he was staying at the Peacock. He got on his pony and trap all the way up to Bakewell, 3 miles away. And there was a big crowd of people standing on Bakewell Bridge, and he proceeded to cast these flies, and fish were taking them, and people were just amazed how they didn't have to use the real thing, and they were using something as an imitation pattern. And he hooked a big fish, and it got stuck in the weed, and the story goes he had 1 foot in, and then he fell in, and the locals say, well, he would have, if he hadn't have fallen in, he would have caught on all of them. So and from the next day onwards, actually June the 6th, the dry fly rule was brought in on Haddon Estate, where anglers had to use imitation patterns to catch the trout. And since the 150th year, we now celebrate that just as a tradition in the club, where we have a club member that will go and try and catch a trout on a dry fly below Bakewell Bridge on that morning. And it's a tradition that's stuck, actually. So it's been it's nice to have those traditions, I think, and history.
And anglers as well, they buy into that side of it, because you can see some people think, well, I want to try a nymph and stuff like that. But looking at the river, it's crystal clear. They're rainbow trout as well. So my guess is rainbow trout, do they behave in the sense that they're perhaps a little bit less moody than brown trout too?
They're more aggressive feeders, so they're competitive. The brown trout, a wild brown trout, is territorial from birth. They don't want to see other brownies. They'll go into the iris, into the margins, hatch out after hatching out, and they don't want to see anyone else. They're pushing them away, and that goes on through a brown trout's life until they push out smaller fish, and until they get to the best lie on the river, beneath a tree, head of the pool. Rainbows are social fish, they're shoal fish, they'll live in the fast water as a community. And if anyone knows anything about coarse fishing, when you have more fish in a group, like grayling or carp, they're competing for food. So when you have a shoal of rainbows here, they'll come up ready to a dry fly, even if nothing's hatching. And for that reason, they are faster growing. We think that the rainbows only live 8 years, can reach 4 or 5 pound. Bakewell town centre's a bit different, maybe pre-fed they can get up to double figures, but the brown trout 12 plus years, slower growing. They're more concentrating on fighting off other fish to get those best spots, and just our native brown trout really. But the interesting thing about the dry fly, which I didn't mention, was that we believe that here on Haddon we have good fish stocks, that we should as an angler should really tempt those fish up into our world before we enter theirs on a nymph, for instance. That makes it does make the fishing hard, because on a cold day there's not going to be much hatching, the fish aren't going to be moving. But as an angler, it's for you to work out, to see if you can tempt and fool that fish, maybe that hunter instinct. But dry fly fishing couldn't happen here if we didn't have good water quality or the fly life. That's kind of the number one rule in our river keeping. Healthy rivers, which means fish can thrive, which means fly life can thrive, and then the angler benefits from all the work that we do from all the habitat work, or pressing the water companies or the environment agency, and it's all got to work together to have a dry fly fishery.
And it's fascinating that you mentioned that as well, because I think about, you've mentioned mayfly, you've mentioned granum, obviously you're incredibly well known here for the work that you've done on the river, and previously Warren as well. And even down in my part of the world, I knew exactly what you guys have been doing. And hatch-wise then, we've talked about the granum, we talked about mayfly. Are there other hatches as well? I guess this is quite a prolific river and a healthy river for hatches.
It is. So we employ someone to do monthly kick samples on all of our rivers at certain points to make sure that we have good numbers of fly life. We've fortunately, just down the road, we've got Dr. Nick Everall, who is the best entomologist in the country, in my opinion. So if we've ever got any problems, he can help us work that out. If we ever saw a dip in fly numbers, we can find those pollution points or chemical spill or whatever it is. So fortunately, the whole catchment up here is keepered, so we all liaise. The fly life here, we have it as it should be. So early season, we've got large dark olives, we've got granum, then we're heading towards medium olives, and then the hawthorn, following on then the mayfly, amongst other certain species of caddis. We've got Stuart Croft in the county as well, who is Mr. Caddis in my opinion, again, just phenomenal. He's been doing a lot of light trapping at night, so he comes up with, finds these new species which we just can't believe. I'm like, really? He misses nothing. And so caddis all kind of through the year, different species, and then blue-winged olives brings on the sherry spinners in the evenings. Blue-winged olives just shows good water quality, ranunculus beds, and then we're kind of back in as we start heading off into late summer. We're back into large dark olive territory, and it comes in those stages through the season. And the anglers here, and when I meet people that want to join the club, I have to say that you have to really be in tune with your entomology. Just you've got to really find out what they're working on. And amongst that, we've got all the midges and canis and the cursed canis, and so it brings anglers on here. I like them to think about their angling. I think that really is good from wild trout. I'm saying you've really got to fool these fish and think about it, and they feel rewarded at the end of the day if they've caught, and if they haven't caught, they've learnt. And that goes hand in hand again with just really got to have that good wild system, and got to have the fly life.
And it seems to me as well that there is a wonderful, like you say, there's so many important people within fishing that have contributed so much that you've mentioned, and the community here of fishermen historically, as you've mentioned, but also to the current day as well. There's a really, and you've been an integral part of that, I know, of creating a fishing community. You must be proud to see that. And like you say, that you've got to understand entomology in a different way to a spate river here, that I think the fish are probably, and the last time I was up, I fished the Cressbrook day ticket water, and it suddenly dawned on me how much more I had to think about my fly selection. So you must be proud of the community that you have helped foster around here, and the standard of the anglers, as well as the result of the fishing and the river that they're fishing.
Yeah, so the fishing club, I'd like to tell you about the birth of the fishing club, really. So we used to be a big day ticket fishery, and what you'd have is anglers coming once a week, once a month, once a season, and they're kind of thrown in at the deep end here. I think the club idea, Warren was integral to that. I mean, everything I've learnt about wild trout and how to bring them on has been from Warren when I first came here 17 years ago, and it's Warren's been gone now 5 years, and it's kind of brought on my own thinking and trying to, how would I want an angling club to go? We went fully angling club maybe 8 years ago, something like that. We still offer day tickets through the Peacock Hotel, the estate hotel, but what I found was the club members understand and they support what we're doing, the running a wild trout system. Day ticket anglers, not all of them, but they kind of see it as we're here from 8 till 8, and yeah, whatever happens in those 12 hours, it'll either be good or bad. The change from day ticket to club also, I had to explain to people that the angling pressure was big. So when you have catch and release policy on the rivers, having day ticket anglers walking up and down those rivers, casting all day, it made it hard. Members that pay their yearly subscription are more chilled out. They can take time to watch the river. They become better anglers, and they do become better anglers over 3, 4, 5 seasons. The more they come, the more they learn. We're quite, the beats are very different, and anglers can move around the estate at free will, effectively, so from different rivers. So it depends on where the wind's coming from, the conditions. There might be a hatch on the lower Wye, it could be on the middle Wye. So it's very, because we've got quite an expansive mileage, having that sense of where to go over time, it's made better anglers. For me personally, I've always thought, if I joined a club, how would I want it to be? First of all, I'd want not too many rules. So we have on 3 of our rivers, we have dry fly only, catch and release, no wading, barbless hooks. That's it. I don't write a rule book of what you shouldn't be doing. I like to leave it to common sense and let those anglers think about what they're doing. And if they have any serious questions about fly choice and whether it's an emerger or a dry fly, we have those discussions. The Derwents on our river system, because it's steep-sided, they're allowed to wade and wet fly fish. And we took that back in hand, I think it was about 9 years ago, from Darleydale Fly Fishing Club, who we used to lease it to. And when we brought that back into our club became instantly more popular because it gave that wading aspect. Some anglers just prefer to wade and be in the river and wet fly fish. We don't permit wading on the Wye or our 2 spring-fed rivers because then they don't have to. We as keepers, we manage the bank so they can fish from the bank. They don't have to get in. And I feel like an angler walking up the river disturbs so much. And we make hard spots, we make easier spots. So again, we cater for all different kinds of anglers. The Derwent, very different, very rocky. So I don't think that there's much impact on the riverbed there, and quite frankly, angling would be impossible. So when someone's walking up the Wye, if no one's waded through it, pools are very quick to recover. 10 minutes, fish can be back on the feed. Your guests can fish there, or you can see someone in the distance. Less pressure again. So less rules. I like to celebrate the positive aspects of our rivers, so the clean health, the wild fish. I go on about no stocking. I don't preach to people. I'd love angling clubs just to maybe reduce their stocking and maybe invest in a keeper instead of putting it all into stock fish. I don't believe stock fishing is sustainable in the next 50 years. The pellets used to feed them, the water quality, and just truly the impact they have on rivers. I think anglers don't really do as much maybe killing of stock fish, and I often look at it as, why are they putting the stock fish in? Are they kind of masking what should be there? But again, just my own opinions really, and fortunately on Haddon we own a lot of the land around the river, so we're kind of in a bit of a bubble. We don't have multi landowners, so that helps how we manage the rivers here. But going back to the club, so I want anglers to come here and just have a lovely day's fishing. They support and fund the work we do, and yeah, since kind of having that ethos, our population on the club has grown. I try and market the club and have different price points of not just have one blanket price point in. So I try and make it affordable for people. I try and work with youngsters coming through into the sport. So we've got Ethan, young lad who started here fishing at 15. Just trying to promote that the youngsters into the sport. On the flip side, we do an over 75 ticket, half price, because not everyone can wade, and there's a lot of wading in the Peak District, and I want anglers to feel safe and come here and just have a few hours and be safe in that knowledge of they can still keep fishing. So what I've tried to have is as a diverse angler kind of profile, youngsters, older, people from all around the country as well. I'm really, from my background of course fishing the lakes around me in London, I like to see that cross course fishing with fly fishing now. On the Derwent, we've got barbel, we've got chub, no coarse fish on the other rivers, but it's just really interesting. And through social media, I'm getting people up coming from the south who are just pushing the boundaries, and it makes the older generation, and I don't say that trying to with any insult, but it's just new fly patterns, just trying to re-energize the fly fishing scene really. And locally, we had Pete Arfield's shop and Orvis, and Pete was a massive help he had his little community there in the shop, which was great. Orvis was a branded company, so and we had Marie in the shop, and Phil White and his wife and Marie. But now, since Orvis shut, we're so lucky to have Malin and Green in the area. We've got local knowledge where I can send anglers. The members can go meet up there and discuss fishing. As a keeper, I'm working on the rivers all day. I'm not fishing. I'm really not. And so I don't see everything. I get the question of what's happening, and I can actually just redirect them to Malin and Green and the people there, or people on social media, members who are active. And it's been great. And I feel like we're at a point now where the community's strong, everyone knows each other, and not everyone gets on, but I can see that from the outside. But everyone respects everyone's and what they're up to, and people are social or they're not. But ultimately, it's fishing, and that's how I see it. So it's great.
That is absolutely awesome, and that's a wonderful blueprint for any fishing club. And I think there's a fishing club I belong to now that's similar, minimal rules. I love what you said when it dawned on me when we were talking about pressure on the water and the dry fly only rule on the Wye here, that the Lee Wolf saying that trout deserve the sanctity of deeper water, and that plays into that beautifully as well, doesn't it? In a good way. And like you say, it allows the fish to come on. And I know, having fished here before, you don't sort of pull up, and if there was a car in one of the spots, you don't think, oh well, that's ruined for the day. You can carry on fishing because people aren't encroaching into the river as well. They're not probably fishing the hell out of a pool, they're fishing their dries. So that gives everyone a chance, and that plays into that background of where it is a fishery with minimal rules, that you don't have to worry about that sort of thing. I've got to get to that spot at 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever it is to make sure you get it. And I just cannot shout loudly enough about what you're doing here. If I wasn't so far away, I'd be joining in a heartbeat. I know we've had many guests on here who are members as well, who speak so highly of the work that you have done and the fishing here as well. And I'm looking at the river now. This is almost semi-torture. It's wonderful to hear the backstory, but I want to bloody go fishing. But it's kind of interesting, and this is a beautiful segue that we've talked about, how long it is for the rainbows to be accepted as wild fish. And we're both from the East End of London. I've been in Devon 25 years. You've been up here 17, did you say? 17 years. So do you think we are naturalised yet?
No.
You can take the boys out the East End, but you can't take the East End out the boys. What we're going to do now is we're going to set our stuff up. I've not barely picked up a fly rod in such a long time. So I'm really, really excited about this. Going to set up our stuff. I guess we're going to wander down. I wrote a thing on the online magazine a number of years ago about fishing the Wye and how I fished American patterns. I thought it was kind of cool to try and catch what was an American fish on an American pattern. I'm going to try something like a parachute Royal Coachman. What do you reckon? Is that allowed?
Yeah, as long as it's floating and sitting flat on the water. Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
That doesn't sound convincing. It worked for me last time, but it wasn't in early April. But we're going to give that a go, or I might try something else. Perhaps it might be an Adams or something like that. But it feels kind of appropriate to me to try and fish an American pattern for these fish. Although American, they're very much from Derbyshire now, so they'll probably tell me to get lost. But we'll give it a go and see what we can do, and we'll keep you in touch with how the fishing goes. We walked downstream just a short distance, and Jan has been spotting granum, just spotted some olives. The river here, we're just going sort of through. There's a tree branch down. Looks like there's a deeper pot there. Water's very, very clear. I can see I've got polarides on now, and I can see pretty clearly into the water right now. There's a bend in the river. The river isn't particularly wide. How wide is it here, Jan?
Oh, good question. I'd say a reasonable caster's width.
Wide enough to be interesting, and there's a nice run into where the tree upstream of us is down, or there's a branch down at least. It's not a tree down, actually, looking at it. It's just a branch that's down. It's just breaking the water a little bit. And then probably for the next 30 feet upstream, there's riffle broken water, and it's got that, again, that American feel to it, and perhaps somebody's home. As Jan has said, there's some fly on the water. We've got some granum, we've got some olives. We're going to see. I'm a bit nervous of tying on that coachman now after the polite laughs. So we'll see how we get on, but it looks absolutely beautiful. I'm trying to figure out, I've not strung up a rod for such a long time. I'm trying to figure out what the leader is that I've got on and what I'll need. So what do people tend to fish here, leader wise, rod wise, tackle wise? Obviously I've only got my waders on because my wellies are absolutely knackered, but I've no intention of wading in here at the moment. But what are people thinking from a tackle, and what do you recommend from a tackle leader perspective setup?
Okay, so I think the Wye, what we need is the line to land gently. So we're looking at 3 or 4 weights in line rating to get it out there. I think we 8'6" to 10 foot, 3 to 4 weights. We want a good long leader. There's a bit of a breeze today, so if we can get away with 10 foot, 11 foot, that would be great. I think ultimately, as the year goes on, we're looking for as long a leader as possible. It's probably the same anywhere. The back cast here is good. We're not in midsummer. We haven't got a lot of tall grass or big margin or anything like that. So the river's full. We're coming out of winter. We've had a lot of rain. So again, there's a lot of water. So the Wye can be forgiving. The fish of the Wye can be forgiving as where the riffles are. They're not going to hear that splashy landing, but they're not going to be as cute as they are in maybe summer when the river's low and they're looking for you. So as strong a leader as we can get away with. It depends if we're going small flies, we're going to be, I still deal in pounds, so 3 to 4 pound, and if we're going down the caddis coachman route, I think something we can get away with a 5 really. There's a bit of sun. I've never personally used mud. I think maybe in height of summer, but the glisten's not really going to be any problems, and we're the second day in the season, so they haven't seen much angling pressure, so hopefully that'll all be to your advantage.
Just seen a couple more granum as well, making their way upstream just a short distance, so that sets the tone. I think I'm probably going to bottle the coachman, but part of me wants to try, just to see anyway, just for fun. I'm here just to enjoy this moment. I'm having already such a great time, and being able to see the background of Haddon Hall lurking over the river, looking down on the river from its high vantage point here. Absolutely stunning. So let's see how we get on. So we fished the first pool and we snipped off the coachman. We did start with it, and we put on a caddis pattern with an orange tag. And Jan felt that there's still a little bit of water in the river at the moment. So we've just moved up. You may be able to hear the water in the background. And we've put on a stimulator, not a huge one, but bigger than what we were. I think we were both thinking on the basis that perhaps something a little bit meatier will bring a fish up. So that's the plan at the moment. We just take it in turns, talking about stuff, making a few casts. Jan is extremely handy with the fly rod as well. And we're just seeing how we get on at the moment. And it is beautiful, as said. The Haddon Hall just over the water at the moment just looks fabulous. I've taken a few photos as well. And just to be able to cast the line again has been really pleasing. Been fishing the Namrod that I had Colin McLeod on, and we've been trying that out. And we've got a 9-foot 4-weight rod, and we put a perception line on, a Rio Perception. I think they're a little bit heavier. I can't remember now. The leader I had on was about 10 foot of 4 pound at the moment. Jan's casting it out. It's fun to cast, actually, isn't it?
It's a lovely rod, lovely rod. Yeah, just the stiffness in the tip that just puts the line where you want it to go.
Yeah, it casts with authority, yet delicacy as well. So it's landing it nicely on the water at the moment. We've been working this flatter water. We'll see if that bigger one does bring someone up. We haven't seen any rises yet, so there's a little clue in itself at the moment. But how long have you been fishing, Jan?
So I started fishing when I was about, I'd say 10, so what's that, 29 years. So I started on the course fishing was my main thing around the local lakes in London, park lakes. So we'd spend all day watching a float, basically, reeling it in, casting it out way too many times. And yeah, I remember my first fish, a lovely little roach, and I'd spent maybe 6 hours waiting for that float to go down. And yeah, caught it, walked back, and my friend unhooked it because I'd never caught one. And yeah, that was a great day, actually. And that's kind of what spurred me on into kind of studying and studying fish and fish farming at Sparsholt, having that real passion in fish. And yeah, I never thought growing up in London it'd bring me here to the Peak District working on a country estate.
When did you first pick up a fly rod, and was that a game-changing moment for you?
So the first time I actually picked up a fly rod was at college, so 2002, something like that. We used to have angling as part of our on our course, basically, and yeah, we used to go to some still waters. I can't remember which ones they were, and it used to be awful, but since leaving college, my first job was at Albury Trout Lakes, just outside Guildford. So I was working on the fish farm there with Richard King, and yeah, we had the rearing of fish to stock the lakes there. So we'd stock around Albury and then deliver fish to Syon Park in London as well. So that was the Duke of Northumberland's estate. And I took on fly fishing more there, actually. I used to go on an evening, just go down to the lakes or have a go on the Tillingbourne there. There's some lovely little wild trout there, right behind Peter Cockrell's shop there. And yeah, that was fun. And that's kind of... So I used to do it there, and then yeah, when I got the job at Haddon 2007, that's when I really started to get into fly fishing, because I knew I'd have to take people out and give advice, and yeah, that's when it kind of really kicked off, actually.
And you can see the way that the experience I've had, you can see when a fly rod's natural in somebody's hand, the way they mend the line, the way they control it, the cast, they can pick up the rod and cast it. And that's obviously an important part of it, but also guiding's part of your role as well, isn't it?
It is. So, I mean, the estate owners, we have to look after family, friends, guests, and we do offer guiding through the Peacock and on guided days as well on our rivers. So I kind of used to do a lot of guiding, but I think the job role now is we have so much water to look after. We have guides that help us out on the rivers as well, so we've got a good little team there from the area. So yeah, it helps. And again, actually, I think since Malin and Green moved on from all this, the fact that we have different rods to try now, multi-brand, and the rod kind of picks you as well, I think. So what you're comfortable with and whatever price point that may be.
Well, that's pretty nice work, my friend. So we keep looking, but we'll keep walking up this beautiful river. There's a wonderful stone bridge in front of us that's channeling two flows into where Jan has been casting as well. So everything looks wonderful. We've just got to wait, see if we can find one of those fish rising. So that's going to be the plan. We've been talking about the changes in the environment and the climate and how we go from a river that's pretty full at the moment to the other extreme during summertime. Does that come with its challenges for you, Jan?
It really does. So when we have high water, not mass flooding, I secretly chuckle to myself because we've got water in the rivers, because I know the other extreme is drought. So 2021 and 2022 we had drought summers, no water. The news people are going, great, everyone can get on they're in their gardens, superb, but all I think of is the river suffering, the fish, the low flows, the fly life. We can get algae build up, just everything goes into survival mode, really.
And how are you dealing with coping with the fish in these conditions when there is little water in the rivers?
So regards to from fishing practices, the club members understand that when we get high water temperatures or high air temperatures, we back off the fishing and we talk via email or our social media group, and we're saying, look, everyone should give it a rest, and they're all very respectful of that. We from a management point of view, a couple of the spring-fed rivers can stop running. So the River Bradford and Lathkill quite complex because of Victorian mining in the area, so some of the rivers run underground, so we can get 100 metres just dry up, so we have to really be on the ball, rescue fish, net them, put them in a tank and move them upstream where we know there's going to be water. But along with pollution, drought is one thing that can kill off our river and something we can't remedy. If we lose any fish, we can't replace them, and same goes with illegal fishing. So we have our paying members who really do look after and care after the fish, put them back, but we do have people that try and come fish for them without permission, so effectively illegally fishing. So and some people are naive, so we point them in the right direction. Some people come at night, especially around Bakewell. So if you walk around the town centre in Bakewell, you can see the fish, and it brings so much joy to people. And then at night, sometimes we have organised crime where they'll come and try and steal them, kill them, and we've got a couple of court cases going through at the minute. And I think, again, is it one man for his fish? Well, if he was taking one fish, we wouldn't know, but if they're taking bags of them, that's slightly different again. So pollution, poaching, and drought conditions are the pressures on the river.
And the poaching thing makes you think, doesn't it, because of all the practices, all the work that you've done, and you talk about moving the fish and then somebody takes them. How are they getting them out of the river? How are they taking them?
So generally spinning or using bread, course tactics, and at varying times of the day. We've just come off the back of an Easter weekend. Fortunately, I don't mind an early Easter. It's colder, it's usually not as nice, so we have less visitors to the Peacock. In Bakewell, people feed the fish, and again, I say, it brings joy to them. The children, they love seeing them, and I don't know where else in the country you can see such a dense population of trout, and to have people take them, really is a wildlife crime, and we have a close-knit connection with Derbyshire rural crimes, and they have a joke and a laugh with me that there is no poaching that goes on south of Derby because no one actually reports it. And as full-time keepers, that's all we're looking for, protecting those fish. If a fish can't spawn, it means that there's no young, no small fish for kingfishers to eat. There's a whole knock-on effect to the ecosystem, and we put that point across in statements to the courts, and they get good fines. And the EA help now. They if they haven't got a rod license, EA take up a lot of our prosecutions, which is good. And I mean, if we have to, we'll privately prosecute and get injunctions, because all we are here is to protect the ecosystem, and it really does need looking after.
Beautifully put. Also, kudos to Jan as well, that I'm thrusting a microphone in his face while he's making lovely casts across the river here as well. Again, while we've been talking, I've seen one large dark, I've seen a couple of granum again. So, yeah, the search continues. We're still sticking with the caddis pattern at the moment and just working our way up the river. And it's just been fun. You know, it's early season, and that's how early season fishing is. And it may be that the case that a window suddenly opens very, very quickly for a short time. We'll see, but it won't stop us from having a good time, that's for sure. Sometimes all you need's just one chance. We got a chance. Nice work, Jan.
Thank you, Pete. That was. We've been working our way upriver. Nothing's moved. We've seen the olives, the granum. The sun's in and out. I think the air temperature's changing all the time, and we've come across this really fast run under our feet, and there's a really fast bubble line. And often here in the summer, when it's a bit lower, the fish just sit either side of the main flow, and there was just a slight unnatural movement something just broke the surface that hasn't changed over the last 5 minutes. And is that a rise? And Pete confirmed it, and yes, we put the fly there second time, bang, a lovely wild brown trout came up and took the fly. So that was the opportunity that many might have missed by not observing the water. But yeah, we stuck, and I'm happy.
That was great work. And as Jan said, you know, it was just we'd been talking, funnily enough, about guiding and all sorts of things, and we'd both seen just the slightest little move. He said, "Do you see it?" And I said, "Yes." First one, drift over, nothing. Second one, as he said, the fish hit it. And we were talking, funnily enough, about, and it is observation, not just at the water level, but also in the air. And we'd been talking about pressure, and I'd said to Jan, the birds are singing now. You can hear the birds. And there may have been just the slightest little uptick in pressure, perhaps in temperature as well, just the slightest little one. And the fish just gave himself away. And we'd been working this water a little bit. It's a small little run, and it's a lovely bubble line that hits a tree stump on the bank and comes out. And the bubble line's probably no more than 8-10 inches across. And on the outside edge of it, just the slightest little clue. And it just goes to show it's easy in early season, particularly in conditions, and Jan, as his role as well, is marshalling, advising, helping people either thinking about coming to the river or people who are actually fishing the river. And he said, well, nobody's caught anything yet. And there was just that slight little change in things, and then some magic has happened. So I'm just hoping that he's going to start getting some reports off the river now that something's been happening elsewhere as well. But that was great angling. It's wonderful to be able to fish with wonderfully instinctive, talented anglers that also know the water so well. And we were talking about guiding and about qualifications, and of course qualifications are really important, but the knowledge of the river is ultra key. And I probably wouldn't have caught any fish, well, I haven't yet, but I'm going to give it a good go. But with Jan's skill and knowledge, and he said this is a really, really good spot. And that does go to show, doesn't it, given the conversation we've been having off mic about people knowing the river, the importance of knowing that.
Yes, I can't tell my anglers enough, observation is key. I do come across a lot of anglers that say there's nothing rising, and then I spend a few minutes stood with them saying, not to show them up, but just say, look, there's one there, that's just, it can be so subtle sometimes, just a swirl beneath the river, just the water's moved differently, and it's just picking up on those natural keys and cues to make the most of your fishing. Observation is everything. Then put a plan into action with what to catch that fish with. Today, April the 2nd, it's hard going in April, but you do get those little chances, and right place, right time, knowing when when to move on, knowing, and you just got to stay put really, I think sometimes, and just give it that chance and not rush things and not give up, keep going, and it's just fishing, and it's different every time. There's no rules in fishing. Fish they're free thinkers and they do what they want, so anything goes. We think we know everything, but we just got to try and when they give their signs away, we just got to try and make the most of it.
So I'm pleased to say this old dog's still got a few moves, and we moved just into the next pool, and Jan again called the play. And again, we've been talking about fishing and how it's easy to want to cast. Just seen a couple of fish move upstream. Where was I? You get transfixed by seeing those fish. How it's easy to want to cast to the other side, and we just flipped short. I flipped short into the softer water on the seam of a run, and a brown again came out and absolutely slapped it. So gave me the chance to set on it, and he gave me a good chance by hitting it so hard. But it was really pleasing to see that. And this is only since that last little segment that we recorded that the fish seem to have woken up just a little bit. So there's a few midge about, Jan, as well. Have you seen those?
Yeah, so you can feel the temperature's warmer now. The birds, everything's in song. The midges, the olives, the granum, and we've come across some slightly slower water as well. I think with the river being high, I think that may give the fish a better chance to see what we're trying to present to them. So well caught, nicely close in, and you didn't do the old the problem of casting straight across the river and lining everything. So you know what you're doing, Pete.
You're the best. One of the things Jan said as well is this spot's a little bit shallower, so I suppose it's worth the trade-off for the fish to come up through the column a little bit more. Perhaps there is a hatch and they're moving up in the column with the hatch a little bit as well, so that may be helping as well. But perhaps that shallower water gave the fish a chance, but he slapped that, and that's welcome back to Derbyshire. It's been awesome to be back. Again, we've just been talking. We've only come up a couple of pools since I did the last section, and we were saying it feels the breeze has come up just a tiny little bit, so it's relatively quiet at the moment still. We're on some flatter, that seems to have been the game plan, that the slightly flatter, slightly slower water seems to be the spot where the fish want to play, and Jan remarked that perhaps it is just when that fly plops down that attracts the fish, and it'll either give it a look or it won't, and move on. So we've been doing that. But we were talking as well about working in fishing, and I was just wondering, Jan, what do you do away from fishing that gives you interest, because you're so deeply immersed in it, and I've seen you having to reply to messages, phone calls, everything else, which is, of course, all fishing related. What do you like to do away from the river?
So fishermen often ask me, am I fishing here every day? The answer is no. So after working all day on the rivers, it's probably the last thing I think about doing, if I'm honest. So personally, I mean, I've got a young family, Eddie and Rosie, boy and girl, and so we're often out doing things as a family. Personally, I'm currently in my hobby is currently running. So I go through stages. My wife knows this. It's cycling, it's running, it's going to watch football. Currently for me though, it's training for London Marathon. So that's I feel like I'm prepared for that. But living in the Peak District, walking, getting out and about is great. So they're kind of my main hobbies. Fishing, I think coarse fishing still interests me. So winter fishing on the River Derwent, near to where I live. So for the chub and barbel, trying to catch those, that really interests me. And that's the coarse fish in the Derwent really does interest me. So this year we've had several species caught which we didn't even know existed, which is great. So I think family, and then kind of those small hobbies I have, either cycling or running, really.
And do you pound the streets listening to music? Because one of the questions we have on the podcast is your track for our, I can never remember what it's called, it's the Fly Culture something or other music list. Are you going to give me a song that you like to listen to, that you might drive to the river? Let's say you got a day off And I'm going to give you two, which I never give anyone. That could be a nightmare in itself. But one that you would drive to the river if you got a day off and you're going to spend some time with people and friends on the river. So a tune to set that background. And do you have a tune that you pound the streets or the peaks to?
Well, I think it's a tough question because I generally, when I'm running, I'm listening to other people's playlists. I don't really create my own. I have recently been listening to a podcast on the running actually, so that's been a good use of time. So I'm kind of. I to set me up for guiding, that's a tricky one. That really is. What I'm going to do is say the song that stands out for me. Sorry, I've just hooked a fish while I'm casting. It spat the hook. So a brown trout just came flying out the water there. So I'm a 90s. I was born in the 80s, but Britpop was it for me really. So when I was fishing with my friends, we'd have a radio on, and maybe that's why we didn't catch as much. But so I'm talking Oasis and Blur. So "Live Forever" by Oasis is something that we're always just listening to, and actually something quite loud and punky garagey was "Song 2" by Blur. Actually, those kind of songs. Yeah, if I hear those, I remember those fishing days actually. So yeah, singing along to that. So that's my answer in a roundabout way.
Good choices, and diplomatic. One for Blur, one for Oasis as well. Probably my fault that the fish didn't stick as well. I was astounded. I was going to take the mic away from you, but you just were so calm, chatting away as you had a fish on, and as you say, a brown trout, which was spat the hook. So it just goes to show sometimes when you're not as focused, magic can happen. But it was in that pocket. There's sort of two sort of flows, and there's a bit of softer water again. That seems to be the case. That even flow seems to be the place. The fly just dropped down. Jan, as I've been saying, is casting and chatting. I don't know that I could manage that. I'm sorry. I hope the podcast doesn't send you to sleep when you're running as well. So hopefully it gives you some energy in a positive way. But they're some really cool choices. And how about that? A fish hooked as well while we're doing it. So that's great to see. Just up into the next pool, and Jan thought he may have to go off, and thankfully he doesn't, so we get to spend some more time on the river. It was his turn, and I'm really thrilled to say that it's been a while since I've seen one, so I've managed to see one of these wild rainbow trout. And when you were playing the fish, it wasn't a huge fish by any means, but I was fascinated to hear that you said how strong it is as well.
Yeah, so these rainbows are they're known for their hard fighting qualities. That's why we stock them into reservoirs. But the wild rainbows, they're different. For a small fish that's swimming in the river all day long, they really do start flying out the water and take line off you, and they can make you believe it's bigger than they really are. So a great small fish, a lovely little fish there. But I think we found kind of the right water, that walking pace glide, and that's where they seem to be sitting, not too fast, using as less energy as possible, and then just grabbing that caddis pattern we're casting, it took it.
We caught a few more fish, walked up where the car is parked now, and there's a beautiful bridge here that we watch people wander over. I'm going to carry on fishing. Jan's going to head back now, but Jan, it's been an absolute pleasure to fish with you, to talk with you. That's been fun, hasn't it? Given it's an early season, the Wye's delivered exactly as I hoped. We fished the water really rather than fishing to rising fish, but the fish were prepared to give the fly you selected the time of day.
Yeah, it's been a good afternoon. Several brown trouts and the one rainbow. Hopefully you'll get one a bit later. More of a casting afternoon, getting those fish to come up blind. There's a cool breeze now. The Granham seem to have petered off, and it's kind of just trying to work that water now and get some more fish.
I'm going to give it a really good go. If I lived nearer, I would join here in a heartbeat. my guess is that there's a waiting list to join the Peacock Fishing Club.
Yeah, I mean, the popularity of the club's grown over the last few years, especially since COVID, when fishing really became, people really made time for that, I think, after everything that had happened. So we do have a waiting list. You can join the waiting list through the Peacock at Roseley website. It's never too late to join that list. Please do. We do have a turnover every year of members for various reasons, so don't be put off by the waiting list. Alternatively, if you do come and stay at the hotel, you're open to buying day tickets, and through guided days you can contact through the hotel, and we can arrange those as well.
And just for listeners to give a sense of, so you've got, how many miles of fishing is there?
So we've got about 15 miles of fishing over 4 rivers available to club members. Day tickets through the hotel and guided days available on the River Derwent and the River Wye, but that gives you about 10 miles of fishing anyway, so that's pretty good.
And if you wanted to sign up, what is membership?
Membership, so we have a different structure, so we have to try and cater to all budgets. So we start at around £850 for the year, and then we go up in increments to £1,350. And we do have a very special package on the Platinum with private beats for about £2,000 a year. So some people spend that on a rod.
That's a good way to make that the value that it is, and like you say, for the variety of fishing, it's just absolutely fantastic. And I love, again, this to me symbolizes your running of the fishing, that you're trying to make it accessible for everybody, which is, I know we've had a number of conversations about this off mic, and I think that's really, really important. So I can only applaud what you're doing. Your love for this river comes through shining bright and clear, which is wonderful to hear. You have great company on the river. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you along on the podcast today. Can you give us your social handles and how people can find the Peacock as well, and all those sorts of bits and pieces as well, please? Yeah,
it's been great being on this podcast, and happy that some fish have obliged as well, which makes it extra special. Yes, so we're contactable through the Peacock at Roseley website, and that's got all the fishing information on there, and waiting list forms you can join. Myself personally, I'm Jan Hobot, spelt with a J, so Jan and then Hobot on Instagram, Facebook, and we've got the Peacock Fly Fishing Club as well, pages on Instagram and Facebook with all kinds of fish and habitat projects and things like that for people to see.
And they're worth taking a look at, and I've had a look at their book for the year as well, which is fantastic. Jan is creating a wonderful community. You know, communities in fishing are incredibly important to me, and it's wonderful to be able to speak to somebody who is doing likewise here. And it's absolutely beautiful bit of river. It's April. I know at home it would be really hard. Well, it's not fishable at home, so I wouldn't be fishing right now, but it's been amazing. We've not fished a great distance of water either. Like I say, I'm going to stay on a little bit later. I think I'm going to have a few more casts. I'm enjoying the rod. I'm enjoying the fishing. I'm enjoying the scenery, everything about it. And then I'll probably head back and have something to eat. But it's been an absolute pleasure to have you along, Jan. Thank you for coming on the Fly Culture podcast today.
Thank you.
Everyone, this has been the Fly Culture podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as me. I love to be able to take you as best as I can onto the river to give you an idea of what we're doing. But this has been about a little bit more. It's been about one man's passion, one man's love for a river or a number of rivers and the work that he's doing for them. So it's been an absolute pleasure today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as me. And of course, as ever, there'll be plenty more coming very, very soon.